The biggest thing in terms of using AI in marketing and in thinking of responsible AI is trying to prevent damage from happening in the first place. So I would say it's really prevention is what you need to do is when you use responsible AI, you need to think about, hey, I don't want to have a situation where I have crossed that line and then I have to do damage control. Because then, as we all know, we're talking about consumer trust. We're talking about the things that the people who we are trying to, like, attract, we have, repelled them instantly because we have crossed that line.
Welcome to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where we simplify AI for impactful marketing. I'm your host, Mike Alden, here to guide you through the world of artificial intelligence and its transformative impact on marketing strategies. Each episode will break down AI concepts into manageable insights and explore practical applications that can supercharge your marketing efforts. Whether you're an experienced marketer or just starting to explore the potential of AI, this podcast will equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to succeed. So tune in and let's unlock the power of AI together. Greetings, program. Welcome back to AI and Marketing Unpacked, where I selfishly use this time to pick the brains of experts at keeping up with and integrating or layering artificial intelligence into social media, content, advertising, search, and other areas of digital marketing. Oh, and you get to learn too. Subscribe to be shown how to prepare yourself and your brand for this AI revolution and come out ahead. Now, have you ever wondered if your marketing strategies are crossing an invisible ethical line? In today's AI-driven world, the temptation to push boundaries for results is stronger than ever. But what if embracing ethics could actually supercharge your marketing efforts? Marketers everywhere are grappling with the critical challenge: how to harness the immense power of AI without compromising their brand's integrity or consumer trust. And the risks are real, from privacy breaches to unintended bias, and the consequences can be severe. But here's the exciting twist: responsible AI isn't just about avoiding pitfalls, it's a gateway to unprecedented innovation and deeper customer connections. Today, we're joined by an expert who's cracked the code on blending cutting edge AI with rock solid ethics. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to introduce Sarah Lloyd Favaro, a true pioneer in the realm of responsible AI innovation with a rich background spanning technology consulting, data science, and enterprise content management. Sarah has been at the forefront of AI integration across various industries. Her work with global giants and her passion for AI literacy have positioned her as a thought leader in responsible AI implementation. Hey, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks so much, Mike, for having me.
My pleasure. Could you start by just helping us understand, what does responsible AI even mean, particularly in the context of marketing, and why it's so crucial, you think, in today's landscape?
Sure, I would love to dig into that. I think responsible AI means different things to different people because it is an umbrella term that encompasses so many different elements of working with I do like Microsoft's pillars of responsible AI, which really kind of give you a full breadth of what covered under that umbrella. So, first of all, you've got fairness, then you've got reliability and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. So there's a lot to unpack there. And we haven't even talked about the sustainability element, which a lot of people also would
Yeah.
categorize that as responsible AI. So all of those things are at play whenever you use AI in any sort of discipline. And of course, that would be true for marketing as well. And just a final note on, what's interesting in particular with responsible AI and marketing is that we know that these days customer data is really our currency. And so, the customer has become the product, if you will, in so many instances that we have to be really, really careful because we're dealing with human beings and human rights. And it is easy, perhaps, to cross the line, especially if you're using other AI tools that are third party and you're not sure, of their ethics and their terms and conditions. So it's a really robust field that covers law, psychology, technology, sociology, and many other elements. And so it's a big field and there are lots of people working in it in different areas. But I think that just encompasses in general what responsible AI is and touches upon how it works within the marketing sphere.
And to your point, this is a big topic. It's a big question. So throughout this talk, I know we're going to reference some big ideas and some resources, and I'm going to make sure that every single thing we touch on is linked in the show notes below for those of you listening who want to do a deeper dive and really understand how that applies to your own organization, like Microsoft's list, for instance. I've seen Mira Rodriguez talking about that on social media and LinkedIn. We're going to have her on the show soon to talk about AI with women in tech. And of course, Microsoft stands towards AI. So that'll be terrific. But I mentioned at the outset, I know this is about more than just a list of what not to do. But let's start there because sometimes I think that's helpful for
Mhm.
folks to kind of wrap their brain about what it is we're talking about. What do you think some of the most common ethical pitfalls maybe that you've seen marketers encounter when implementing
Mhm.
AI in their strategies? And I recognize you're not a marketer. So I'm appreciating that
Yeah.
you're putting your I'm not a marketer, but I'm going to try hat on as
Okay.
you look at this for our assistants.
Yes, thank you for that. I would say the biggest thing in terms of using AI in marketing and in thinking of responsible AI is trying to prevent damage from happening in the first place. So I would say it's really prevention is what you need to do is when you use responsible AI, you need to think about, hey, I don't want to have a situation where I have crossed that line and then I have to do damage control. Because then, as we all know, we're talking about consumer trust. We're talking about the things that the people who we are trying to, like, attract, we have, repelled them instantly because we have crossed that line. So I think with responsible AI, the important thing is to understand, what this technology is. Again, talking about third party AI tools, there's some great ones and they're amazing. And it's important to understand how they are using data that would be integrated and funneled to their particular tool. So I think, we can think of some of the common pitfalls such as data privacy violations. Like, even we know, I mean, I am guilty of this as well. I am in a hurry and I need to use a tool, for example, and I want to use the free version, but they require me to sign up. And so I kind of sign away my rights. I never read the terms and conditions from Apple or, all these things. Hopefully, I'm not the only one in that same boat, but more and more when the technology such as AI, it ups the ante, these terms and conditions become more important. And it's something that even as a marketer, we want to try to provide that transparency in a way that's easy for people to understand without having to read through, a 50-page contract of terms and conditions when they wanna use a particular tool or buy a particular product, etcetera. So that data privacy and security also, we have breaches up all the time. Seem to receive a letter in the mail every month. So we need to be really careful because sometimes we have that customer data, and despite all of the secure measures a company takes to protect that, we know that things can happen inadvertently. So that's something obviously, is important to talk about. You already mentioned also bias. I think just human data and human behavior, we are biased, unfortunately. And we need to realize that the historical data that AI processes and analyzes, a lot of time that's biased data because it was past data. And so we need to really look at the outputs of AI, these tools, even content, basic content, marketing content generation or copy, and see and read them and make sure that we edit them and try them out, in focus groups or different mediums where people could say, hey, I don't think that really would work. And see, this is the way to do that testing before that damage is done by, sending out your marketing campaign without doing that due diligence. So those are just a couple of common ethical pitfalls that I think everybody would be, similar or familiar with. And just the last point, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is that personalization. That's, I think, what, it's kind of the holy grail of AI. It can, pursue enormous amounts of customer data that for a human being, it's too manual and we just can't handle all of the different pieces. But AI, is 24/7 and it just has, parallel processing. So it has no problem with that. And it can generate these wonderful insights about customer behavior and consumer personas. So obviously we want to, take advantage of those, but sometimes it may cross the line into too personal and to the point where it gets a little creepy. So I think that's also something to keep in mind. And again, testing before you go to market is always important.
Those are huge points. In fact, we did an entire episode with Santi Howe from Convincing Convert all about data personalization and obviously, how wonderful AI can be for that. But at the
Mm.
same time, it's easy to cross those lines and getting too personal. She shared this example of how, Target had used AI to generate models of its buyers so that it could identify women who were pregnant before they'd even told anybody that they were pregnant
Oh
based
my
on their
gosh.
shopping habits. So they could get ahead of their competitors with their messaging and, say, hey, it's just, you could look at this formula and that sort of thing, which
Yeah.
was a little questionable right off the bat. But then
Yeah.
they sent out
Mm.
marketing messaging, like direct mail in the hand
Mhm.
pieces of copy that talked to
Mhm.
these pregnant women,
Mm.
showing other people in their household who picked up the mail that they're pregnant before they'd even been
Oh my
told.
gosh. That's crazy.
Yeah, so they
Yeah.
obviously crossed a line there, and I
Yeah.
wanna go back to your earlier point about just data privacy in general, because we're recording this in late September and just within the last few days, LinkedIn, what most people would consider
Mhm.
the
Oh
most
gosh.
trustworthy of social networks is now embroiled in this huge controversy because it was
That's
discovered
right.
that they've been scraping user profiles for art,
Mhm. Mhm.
empower artificial intelligence and train AI models. And
Yeah.
the real sticky wicket for me was that it was non-EU profiles. They knew
Mhm.
that if they scraped members who live in the EU, they would have been, against GDPR and against the data privacy
Yeah.
laws in the EU. So they
Right.
had that thought process in mind. They knew it wasn't
Mhm.
okay to do it in the EU because there was an actual law, but they figured, well, since there's no law
Right.
against it in, the rest of the world, it's okay. And now they have countless people talking about him and talking
Right.
about that, in a negative light online.
Right. It's that damage control I was talking about.
Yeah.
Now they're backtracking and, people I don't know how many posts I've seen or friends who've sent me, "Oh, if you need to, turn this off in LinkedIn, let me just, you know, keep you aware of what's going on." But that's kind of sneaky,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, understanding that if they did do it within the EU, they would be obviously penalized, financially, possibly, and but not in the US. And that's always been this dichotomy, I think, with US based AI and technology is kind of like that fail fast. Let's just try it and see what happens, and then we'll figure out, later how to deal with any of the, the back end issues that result. And I think that's great for innovation. I'm totally, there's so many great things about that. But I think with I really feel strongly about this. With artificial intelligence, there's the possibility, and this is where that sensitive uses comes up. And in the EU AI Act, they talk about, different levels of risk systems, that are high risk versus low risk. And I think for the most part, using AI in marketing, it can be low risk, so there are a lot of use cases, that are not questionable, that make a lot of sense in terms of productivity, like, again, just idea generation or processing, the ton of customer data that you have been given access to because your customers said, "Here, I will allow you to have this data." But the thing is that when you do something that these like LinkedIn did, or for example, I don't know if this has ever happened to you. This is not necessarily AI, but where, you sign up for a free trial. And then, of course, it immediately starts to then debit your credit card because you had to put your credit card in to get the free trial. But of course, you forgot. And then you start getting the bills, or you don't even get a bill. You just get the notification later. You're like, "Oh, what is that?" Those types of things, I think customers are not prone to accept as much as we did in the past because customers are savvier. They just have more exposure to technology and applications and, digital services and artificial intelligence. So I think we really need to remember that customers and consumers are getting savvier. And so we need to treat them, you know, as such and with respect, especially in terms of anything with a sensitive use, financial, with healthcare, of course. And then, as I was relating to before, that personal data that, there are data brokers out there. So we've got to be, really, really careful and brand the most important thing that they offer to their customers is that trust. And if that is broken, which is so easy to do, it's really, really hard to get it back if it ever comes back from a particular customer. So many things. I mean, LinkedIn is lucky because I think it's the biggest platform out there for so many things. I don't think they're going to have, as big of a problem if there were other platforms similar to LinkedIn, but still, questionable.
Yeah, yeah, very. So these are all great examples of what not to do. Let's kind of reframe the conversation for a moment and talk about what you think having that responsible AI approach, how that might actually help marketers, how it might make
Mhm.
maybe their campaigns more innovative or more effective. How do you think it would help them in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would engender trust. Again, with consumers becoming more savvy, especially the younger consumers, I think they expect that. They expect that level of, personalization. They want things to be like, Amazon and other touch points in with their interactions. But at the same time, I think it's okay, to also explain that some of the processes are being used, but artificial intelligence is behind some of these processes. And we've seen, as we talked about before, in the EU AI Act, for example, it is even imperative to indicate that a chatbot, let's say, for customer service or whatever it may be, is actually using AI. And some people, are just gonna gloss over it and they're not gonna care, and other people will appreciate that that has been, you know, told up front. And so that's one way is to and then allowing the person, the consumer, if they want more information to then double click let's say, and do a deeper dive to get more information about maybe the how and the why AI is being used in these particular digital services to actually act behind the scene. Now, there's some people who don't want that level of detail, and that's totally, acceptable. But there are some people who may really appreciate that, even if they don't actually dive deeper. The fact that the company has offered to its consumer base the option, I think it really does engender trust because it treats consumers with the rights and respect that they deserve. And so that's one way. Even as simple as we saw, I don't know if you heard about recently the in California, there already always seem to be a little bit ahead of some of the other states in the United States, but requiring AI digital assets like through Dolly or, video that's created with AI to have that watermark and not only visible to any other user or viewer who might see that, but also then I don't know how they do it exactly, but in the metadata as well. And so, of course, there'll be ways to get around that, I'm sure, and whatnot. But even that, I think people might appreciate because we kind of already know when people are using AI created images, they have this look and feel about them. You know, honestly, I don't like seeing them when I feel like they're trying to pawn this off on me like, "Oh, yes, we're such a creative, agency and we've done all this, work," when I know these are, AI generated images. I would much rather prefer to see a little watermark and somebody say that up front to me than, being passed off as like, "Oh, we did all this work and look at us." But that's me, and not everyone will feel that way. I think that just goes into, kind of how the integrity of even a friendship, do you want your friend to be upfront and open with you, or do you want them to be hiding or something? So that's kind of how I look at responsible AI is like, how would I want my friend to interact with me? And that may be a funny way of looking at it, but it really helps keep me grounded with not work with technology.
I think that is so true because it applies to everything, not just
Mhm.
AI, right? If the company makes a mistake, whether it has to do with AI or not, the
Yeah.
best course of action is always to be transparent with their customers. Tell them what went wrong,
Yeah.
tell them what you did, tell them how you're going to fix
Mhm.
it, and that will engender trust. And yeah, some people may still be upset, some people may still quit. You messed up.
Or
That's the price you paid, but you stave
right,
off so many other people from dropping
right,
you as a client or a vendor. Folks, we're talking
right.
with Sarah Lloyd Favaro about responsible use of AI, and we're going to get into some practical steps in a moment. But before we do, let me remind you about the tool I'm using to leverage paid ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and more without having to pay for multiple subscriptions. This episode of AI and Marketing Unpacked is brought to you by Magi, your gateway to making generative AI incredibly simple and accessible. Wondering how to seamlessly integrate AI into your marketing strategy without getting bogged down by complexities? That's exactly where Magi shine. It provides user friendly AI solutions that empower marketers just like you to innovate and elevate your campaigns without needing a degree in data science. Imagine having the power to generate creative content, insightful marketing data analysis, or even personalized customer communications, all at the touch of a button. Magi isn't just about providing tools, it's about transforming your approach to marketing with AI that's tailor made to be straightforward and effective. So, whether you're looking to boost your content creation process or want deeper insights into your marketing performance, Magi makes it all possible with a few clicks. No fuss, no hassle, just results. Ready to simplify your AI journey? Visit Magi today to learn how their solutions can revolutionize the way you engage with your audience. Don't just market, market smarter with Magi. Tap the link in the show notes. Sarah, we touched on bias just a little bit
Mhm.
earlier. I'd love if you could expand on that and help us understand what is bias? How does that come into play? How can marketers ensure that their AI driven campaigns don't inadvertently perpetuate bias?
Mhm. Sure. I was just talking to someone the other day, for example, and this person is a Latina, and I think she was trying to generate, an AI avatar and, do some work around that so that, it's really a wonderful technology. It has so many uses. But of course, when she was doing that generation, she kept getting likeness of herself, but it always had gold hoop large earrings. And she couldn't get out of this loop. And it was just convinced that because, of some bias that it maybe existed in the past, that this would was the right output to provide to her. And that wasn't her likeness. That wasn't defining her, but she had a very hard time overstepping that. So that's just an example of something, with again, some of those cases of gender and, race and other elements that we have a lot of historical data that in the past, if you just think through history, we have evolved in many different ways. But the data that we may be using for predictive AI to try to come up with this definition of whatever it is that we've asked the AI system to come up with, it may be pulling from data that is not as evolved as we currently are. So I don't know if that has ever happened to you before, even when you maybe done, a dolly or something like that, and you wanted a more representative and crowd of people, but you just get one very homogenous, type of image coming out. There are lots of examples, but I think I'd love to hear your thoughts if that has ever occurred to you. But in order just to be aware of that, I think a lot of us already are aware of that. And, in big companies, we even go through unconscious bias training for our human interactions. So I think we just have to remember that technology, is a reflection of the humans and the data that we provided. So we always want to check what the output is, what the outcome is, and is it appropriate in the, context of how we'd like to use it. So that what about you, Mike? Have you ever had a similar situation?
Yeah, it was funny because before the break, you were talking about creating images with AI, and I was reminded that whenever I'm creating images exclusively for my blog, I'm creating images where I tell the AI to show a bear in human clothing wearing a fedora in a Star Wars setting, doing something, whatever it is I think that may be appropriate, so that it is
Mhm.
100% obvious to anybody who looks at it. These are AI generated images. I'm
Right.
obviously not fooling anybody, and that's very deliberate. But what you
Yeah.
just reminded me of also is that recently I was organizing a happy hour for local St. Louis
Mhm.
marketers and AI enthusiasts. And I wanted to have, one of my style of images as the header for the event page where people can learn more about it and RSVP. And so I
Yeah.
said, give me a bear in human clothing wearing a fedora in a Star Wars. No, I said in a speakeasy talking to other marketers. And so
Yeah.
that was very basic prompt. And it gave me that. It gave me a bear and a hat and everything. Every single other marketer was an older white guy.
And just
Like, come on.
okay.
I'm not surprised.
Right.
Come on. So I
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
specifically tell it, I want it to be diverse. I want women. There are going to be more women than men there, no
Yeah.
matter what. So let's show that and reflect that in
Right.
the image. But to your point, yeah,
Mhm.
that's a reflection of our unfortunate history as a society and history as marketers. Most images were
Right.
depicting men and so on. So it
Mhm.
need to have that mindset of this is not okay. We want to make sure that we fix it.
Right. Yeah, definitely. It's so funny, sometimes you're so hopeful, when you put in your prompt and you're you're like, it's generating and you're like, oh, it's going to create the most amazing, image or video. And then you realize this is a continuous conversation that I need to have with the AI to really get it to where what's in my mind, is actually what is appearing on the screen. Because it's not necessarily immediate. Maybe, yeah, in a few years, I mean, obviously it's going to improve exponentially,
Yeah.
and it is, but for now, we still have to have that, cliche human in the loop, check everything we do because we don't want to cause that damage to a marginalized population that may have, had something in the past, but things are different now. So we just really need to understand the context and understand that AI is a predictive technology and it's not, going to have the human foresight and insight and ability to really evaluate something based upon the context that you want to show the output in.
Yeah, and that's why conversations like this are so important. I hope all of you listening are going to take that home and think about going forward. How can we double check and make sure that the work that we're doing with AI doesn't have embedded biases? And it could be, you know, that kind of physical features, race, gender, and ethnicity, that sort of thing. But it can also be more, past purchase history. I mean, if a lot of your purchase data is by more affluent demographics, then all of a sudden the AI is going to take that, even if it's a private AI and going to shift your marketing to focus on that demographic when maybe you shouldn't be doing that way. So these are all
Mhm.
concerns that I hope all of you are thinking about. Sarah, could you walk us through what some practical steps that you think marketers could take starting today that would help them implement
Mhm.
responsible AI into their current strategies?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that I've learned just working in technology and the full life cycle of projects, be them marketing campaigns or educational campaigns or, new cloud implementations of systems, et cetera, is to really, map everything out and make sure that responsible use and in this case we're talking about AI, responsible AI is really baked into the planning, the requirements and the design of whatever it is you're intending to create. And that could be as simple as, some advertising or marketing copy, or it could be, a social media post. It could be, something very simple, but I think just having that responsible AI by design as part of your checklist, that's really important because going forward, we know that it's going to be illegal in the EU, for example. And so that's already something we just because, we don't want to do anything unlawful. We might as well try to, do the right thing by design. But also we know it's the right thing to do by our customers. And again, I think they really appreciate that. So that, one thing in any sort of, project management or, checklists or roadmaps, let's say, that should be, something that is kept in mind from the beginning and especially should be baked into the design. So that would be the first thing. And then on the flip end, I would say the testing. I think this happens all the time because I've had lots of roles in learning and development and training, for example, where there's some instructional designers and people creating this amazing content. And I can think of, similarity with marketing content and marketing campaigns. And then, all of a sudden the deadline is upon us and like, oh, we got to go to the market. We got to get this delivered right away. That we don't have any more time. But then we haven't done the testing to see, is it actually working the way we intended it to? How is this should we do a pilot or a proof of concept to or focus group, just to like the movies, to see do they like the ending? is this, or are they like scratching their head like, what in the world is this? What were they thinking? So that has to be baked into your timeline and your schedule, roadmap, etc., and not rushed because again, it's so much harder if the damage is done to fix it than to be preventative to begin with. So I would say those are the two things you can do at the beginning and then at the end before you release or, go to market. And then just the AI literacy and doing this is something that I do, personally with everyone I come in contact. And sometimes they're like, okay, enough with the responsible AI stuff. But, I'd like to educate and talk to people about this. And so companies and collaborators and colleagues, this should be something that everyone feels comfortable discussing. And that literacy level needs to be there because all of our tools these days are either AI powered or infused with AI. So we've got to know what we're working with before we actually produce and create outputs with them.
That AI literacy point is huge. I know many of the folks
Mhm,
who are listening to this show, this is their first foray into AI. And by the way, if that's you, if you're just getting started on your AI journey, I've got an AI marketing primer that you can download. It's linked in the show notes. That'll help you understand, what's the difference between ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and LLMs and all the other language that you need to have some familiarity with, and then you can just move on into your marketing career. So that's where I want to bring you back in, Sarah, for folks like that
mhm,
who are new to AI and marketing. What advice do you have? Like, what's one piece of advice you'd give them so that they start off on
mhm.
the right ethical foot?
Yeah. I can just tell you even what's been really helpful to me is to actually and there's so many tools out there that you can use to do this, and obviously, if you're part of a company, hopefully, they would provide this opportunity, and if not, if you're, let's say, a sole proprietor, freelancer, you may have to take it upon yourself to, be proactive, but actually, even creating your own chatbot with no code, I'm not you don't need to learn Python, but if you want to, even better. But just doing something even, with a free trial or, some of the tools that are out there and to demystify the AI behind it and to understand, how it draws upon, content or words or customer data, and Food actually then kind of aggregates all of that and parse through it and then come out with, responses in a chat bot. That was really helpful to me just to understand, hey, this is not, rocket science. Yes, maybe the LLMs, the transformers and the models, the frontier models. Yes, that may be rocket science. But you don't have to actually know all the underpinnings of the AI perhaps you would use, you would connect to a chat GPT version that is available for your use to understand this. So I always like to, put my hands on the keyboard and actually do things in action because again, from my learning and development background, I know that the best way to really, you know, accept something, outside of theory is gonna be that application of learning by doing, just like we do when we, learn to ride a bike or we learn to drive. We really get that experience when we get our driver's license, not when we're taking the test, at the DMV to get the permit. So that's what I would recommend, and you may have to search, but there's so many free, ways to get that experience, even if it's just creating a really basic chatbot or your own GPT. Those are easy ways to kind of get in there and understand AI and how it could, you know, be used in marketing.
That's some terrific advice. As an NLP practitioner, I really appreciate starting with the why for the kinesthetic learners in the audience, and then really getting into the details of how you're going to do it, what it is, what's it going to look like, so that we can really wrap our minds around that. Because I've said before, AI is different from some of the other things that we would have used as a marketer. If I show you Canva and I say this is to create images, you know before you even get into Canva what that experience is probably going to be like. But AI is not like that. It's an underlying technology. We need those use cases and we need that hands-on experience to really perceive that
Mhm.
value. So I'll have some links for those of you listening in the show notes to kind of give you some sense or some examples of what you can do. But Sarah, you've been absolutely amazing. For folks who want to
Mm.
connect with you and learn more, where can they go?
Oh, LinkedIn is probably the best way. I'm Sarah Lloyd Favaro. I also have my Learn Bold Responsible AI company page on LinkedIn. So either way, I would love, to chat with you further. And Mike, this has been just absolutely a pleasure sitting here and talking about AI and responsible AI, my favorite topic. So I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, all of you, for listening. Like I mentioned a moment ago, if you're new to AI, I'll have the AI marketing primer linked for you in the show notes. That will help you get started and help you understand where to go from here. But for the rest of you, please, if you haven't already, find the AI and Marketing Unpacked podcast on Apple and drop me a review. I'd love to know what you think. Until next time, welcome to the grid. Thanks for joining us on AI and Marketing Unpacked. I hope today's episode has inspired you and given you actionable insights to integrate AI into your marketing strategies. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and consider leaving a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and answer any questions you might have. Don't forget to join us next time as we continue to simplify AI and help you make a real impact in your marketing efforts. Until then, keep innovating, see just how far AI can take your marketing. Thank you for listening and have a fantastic day.